What's going on, everyone? So, Lakers are kind of waiting around and are expected to re-engage with the Miami Heat for Andrew Wiggins, right? Andrew Wiggins would be great, slot in at the three, give you a legit two-way 3-and-D style wing that the Lakers really need, right? A guy that can be that defender, point of attack, defend 1 through 3 for you, even the 4 on some occasions, right? Andrew Wiggins makes a lot of sense. But the problem is the price tag is so high right now, right? You're giving up Rui Hachimura, a first-round pick, plus Dalton Connect. It's insane, right? Like, just it isn't worth it for the Lakers to pony that up, right? Especially given, there's questions about Andrew Wiggins, right? Where's his mental at as far as like the game of basketball, right? On top of that, he had a good season last year, especially for Miami. But again, he's a guy that, has had his ups and downs over the course of his career. He had that insane run in 2022 where he was arguably finals MVP, but he was never able to do that before, and he's never been able to do it since, right? Like Andrew Wiggins as like your 4th or 5th guy, probably a very good basketball team, right? Like, but again, it's just a lot to give up given the age and just the question marks and concerns. I think he'll be fine. I think he'll be great. But again, there are some questions, right? So to me, it's like, okay, if you're going to have to pony up all this stuff to go get Andrew Wiggins, could you maybe look at other options, other targets that can give you a lot of the same stuff that Andrew Wiggins does, but is younger, right? And one guy that immediately comes to mind is RJ Barrett, right? The Toronto Raptors are shopping RJ Barrett, would kind of like to get off of his money, right? He lines up, he has like the same type of, his contract lines up with the 2027 thing, right? That the Lakers supposedly are trying to preserve cap for, although Jovan Buha recently said that that's a little overblown essentially. But regardless, you'd have the cap flexibility still going forward. So he's on the same type of contract that Andrew Wiggins is, right? Defensively, they were very similar last year, right? Like, so Andrew Wiggins had a 113.5 defensive rating, right? Which is good. RJ Barrett had a 115.5 defensive rating. So 2 points worse. But one, RJ Barrett was on Toronto all season, which was one of the worst teams in all of basketball, especially defensively. 2, he's had much better defensive seasons, right? For his career, he's a 114.7. So again, he's had some really good years. He had a 110.4 defensive rated season, right? What does he look like? Locked in, bought in on the defensive side of things for a team like the Lakers where he's competing for championships and buy-in. Guy that I've talked about before is like, look at PJ Washington. Wasn't really looked at or known as like this elite defensive player. Wasn't really looked at as this guy that can just, anchor a defense. And then he went to a team like the Dallas Mavericks where he was there to contend and win a championship and was literally their best defensive player by like every metric for them. Like really was that anchor for them. So can you maybe get something similar with an RJ Barrett where he's like, dude, we need you to come here. We need you to buy in and lock in on the defensive side of things and let's go, right? Because you gotta keep in mind, he was on, the Knicks before like now they're like insanely good. And then, he was on now Toronto. So it's like, what does he look like when he's on a team where it's like, hey, no, we're trying to win a championship right now. He can slot in at the 2 or the 3. Even on some cases, I think you could slot him in at the 4 because he's, 6'7" in size. He's got good size, good strength. He's making very similar money, $27.7 million. So you're talking Rui plus like a Gabe Vincent or something like that in order to get the trade done anyway. So it's kind of the same thing, right? If you're the Lakers, can you maybe reach out to Toronto and be like, hey, what are you looking for RJ Barrett, right? Like, also, if you can kind of gauge what you could get for RJ, you may be able to even leverage that to go get an Andrew Wiggins. I also wouldn't hate the idea of trying to go get both. The problem is you'd have to trade Austin Reeves, I just don't think the Lakers would trade Austin Reeves. But you could go and trade for an Andrew Wiggins and then go trade for an RJ Barrett, right? You got enough expiring contracts and salaries to make that happen. And then, maybe you give Connect in one deal and a first in another and, pull that off. I don't know. It'd be kind of interesting, right? But also, right, like Toronto gets back a Rui Hachimura, which makes sense for them. You get a versatile kind of play in at the 4, play in at the 3 for you, shoot the 3 ball. gives you kind of a year to gauge it. You get off of, like I said, RJ Barrett's next year's contract, which is, something that I'm sure that they would be kind of interested in. Like, hey, we're shedding some salary for you because, again, he's making $27.7 million this year and then $29.6 million next year. So it's like, dude, we're saving you $30 million next year, right? For a team that wants to make some other moves and wants to do some stuff. And you got, Scotty Barnes, you got a Brandon Ingram now, right? They got several guys that, they're trying to look at, engage, and see, like, okay, like, how is this team going to shape up, right? How much opportunity is RJ Barrett going to be? Like, where does he kind of fall into that rank? So it might make sense of like, hey, we could get, maybe a Dalton Connect and a Rui Hachimura, take on Gabe Vincent. We can either keep him or ship him out, right? Give you a worst case. You got a veteran kind of backup guard that could, help with some of the young guys, maybe help with quickly kind of, reel in some of the game that they kind of want him to play. So again, it could be something that's a win-win. I mean, I would rather give up Rui, Gabe Vincent, Dalton Connect, and a first for RJ Barrett than for Andrew Wiggins. Right? You could argue Andrew Wiggins has more experience and, again, he had that 2022 season run and all that stuff, and RJ Barrett's still, a little bit of a question mark on what he could do, but RJ Barrett's 25 years old. There's plenty of upside. I mean, he just turned 25 in June, so he wouldn't be 26 till the NBA Finals or after the NBA Finals, right? Like, so talking about a guy that's still incredibly young that could be a foundation piece. I mean, you could start him at the 2 next to Luka. If you end up trading Austin Reeves, or if Austin Reeves or something like that give you some Austin Reeves insurance, I said I wouldn't hate going and getting RJ Barrett and go get an Andrew Wiggins, right? Go get both if you can. Right? And then now you got Luka, RJ Barrett, Andrew Wiggins, LeBron James, and DeAndre Ayton. Sounds pretty good to me, but point is, like, I wouldn't hate bringing in a guy like an RJ Barrett who could slot in, defend, again, 1 through 3, even the 4 on many occasions, many nights. He's younger. There's more upside, more potential. Where Andrew Wiggins, you know what he is. You know what he's gonna get. Don't get me wrong, very good. I'd love to have Andrew Wiggins. I think that there's an argument more for this year, if you want to win this year for Andrew Wiggins, right, than RJ Barrett. But I think the ceiling, upside, and potential is far greater for RJ Barrett. Because again, he is so young, and he's a guy that, he averaged 21.1 points, 6 rebounds, and almost 6 assists last year on 47% shooting. Right? Like, comes in, knock down, he can create for himself, create for others, be a bucket getter, operate and knock down in the mid-range. Right? Gives you an upgrade. Like, he's a guy that I really think makes sense for a team like the Lakers, especially if you're going to have, if I have to give up this, let's say Andrew Wiggins and RJ Barrett are the exact same price. You have to pay for one of them, right? I'd rather pay for RJ Barrett. Because again, the upside, the potential, the youth, the scoring, the defense, all of that, right? Even the defense rating is not that, don't get me wrong, 2 points is quite a bit when you're comparing defense ratings, but it's not like, if RJ Barrett was like a 118, 120, it'd be like, hey, that's it's pretty rough. But no, he was good. And again, context is important. Context matters. You kind of look at, the situation, Andrew Wiggins was in, being on a team like the Warriors, which every year are usually one of the better defensive teams, to Miami, which again can be a very good defensive team, to, RJ Barrett being on Toronto where they're tanking for draft picks, right? Like, they're a team that's just happy to be, in the play-in if they can make it there, right? So even that's a little, questionable, right? But kind of get into the overall production, right? And what can RJ Barrett kind of bring, right? It kind of briefly went over, but I want to go over the stats. So last year, 58 games played. 58 games started, averaged 32.2 minutes per game, took 17 field goal attempts per game, shot 46.8%, so basically 47% from the field total. He shot 35% from three-point range on 5.3 attempts. He is a career 35% three-point shooter on 4.8 attempts, but he has, the previous year with Toronto on 4 attempts was 39.2%. And he had a season with the Knicks in which he had a 40% season, right? So he's never played alongside somebody like a Luka Doncic or LeBron James, right? So again, can he, I'm not saying necessarily 40%, but instead of being 35, can he be 38, 37%, right? Especially if he picks up on the defensive side of things and actually gives that defensive effort. I think that's a possibility. 2-point range, 52.2% on 11.7 attempts. So basically 12 attempts, shot 52.2%, had an EFG of 52.3%. Free throw shooting, right? He was not great. He hasn't been great, period, in Toronto. He is a career 70% guy. He was 83.1% on 5 attempts his last season with the Knicks. But with Toronto, he's been awful. He's been 63% both seasons on 5.2 attempts. That just like a Toronto thing? Because, I mean, that was by far his worst. Like, you look at, like, kind of scaling up. He was 83.1% with the Knicks, then 74%, 71.4%, and then 75%. The last time he was 60% from free throw line was his rookie season, in which he was 61.5%. So is that just something that's an outlier, or is that something to kind of keep an eye on, which that could be definitely a concern? Rebounding, 6.3 rebounds, 5 assists, a steal, half a block, and 21.1 points per game. If you can get RJ Barrett, I think you go get RJ Barrett. We know Toronto's shopping him. We know Toronto wants to get off of him. Can you be that team that gets off of him? Be like, hey, we got the expiring contracts. Let's make something happen. But let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me out. If you enjoy these types of videos, truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one.